Okay, this is going to be the first segment of the presentation on Beirut Souks. This will be discussing the urban history throughout the different time periods as architecture progresses. During the early Ottoman influence in Beirut, Beirut had previously been developed during what we know as the Roman ruling period under Alexander the Great, previous to the Ottoman Empire's rule from 1516 until the beginning of the French Mandate. As you can see in the maps here represented on the slide, the Ottoman Empire uses an organic gridded system to lay out city due to its geographical location as a port city along the Mediterranean Sea. Beirut is also known to have been one of the oldest cities in the world. Therefore, over a period of many layers of reconstruction and demolition, the city of Beirut encompasses urban planning that will be shaped through the population influxes and overarching ideologies of what political scenarios may be occurring during that time. Key building types of architecture displaying the urban development of Beirut during the Ottoman period can be shown in the Imperial Ottoman Bank headquarters shown on the left, and in the Grand Serial of Beirut shown on the right. The usage of monumental architecture through Western techniques and materials to distinguish the architectural style that encompassed most of Beirut during the period of Ottoman rule. The usage of involvement of elements such as strong building materials like clay and sand to create a strong lasting material structure was quite beneficial when having to replace previous building elements of a material known as pile that did not hold up against the coastal conditions of Beirut. On the left you see the Ottoman Bank that was built around 1840 when Beirut became the capital of the Ottoman Empire and needed a central location for the national bank for the empire. The image on the right is the Grand Serial, which was created to house government officials as the city grew and encompassed more elements of a stronger, more developed government in the region. The goal of the Ottomans during this time was to modernize the area from a rural port town to a major hub and port city along the Mediterranean. The focus of development was towards a vibrant middle class, and changes were created in Beirut towards the spatial organization, socio-economic development, and towards the administrative segments. The newly fabricated steel material and steamship in 1836 assisted in the urban development of Beirut to create the monumental architecture of this time. However, the process continued to be slowed down due to economic hardships and environmental factors like earthquakes. The French Mandate period in Beirut was right after the Ottoman period. During this time, architectural influences continued to occur during this period known as the French Mandate, which occurred in 1923 after the fall of the Ottoman Empire. During this period, the architectural surrounding of Beirut changed as the Beirut city underwent a replanning period. Designed on the idea of creating a stronger infrastructure, projects such as long-span roads connecting aspects of the country, the creation of hospitals, postal services, widespread communication through telephone, and updating the central port allowed for growth in the city of Beirut. Along with the revival period of these places, the French displayed architectural elements through religions shown in St. Gregory's Cathedral on the left, and through apartments that display characteristics of French architecture with the suspended porches, arches, and the usage of stonework in which the designs created a sense of hierarchy and symmetry through the varying design elements. The most notable area where this architecture is represented is on the east side of Beirut. Outside of architecture, the language of French became widely adopted in the region during this time. This is a slide representing the urban history through independence in Beirut. Lebanon gained its independence on November 22nd of 1943. Represented in the left picture shows the massive amount of people gathered to celebrate the victory and independence. Shortly afterwards, the president of Lebanon changed an amendment to the constitution, granting him a secondary 6-year term. With a predisposed dispute between the Muslims and the Christians due to the French influence, The problems only worsened thereafter. An organization called the Syrian Socialist Nationalist Party overthrew the government during this period of chaos, which was evident in the architecture of the buildings, however, were still intact until after the Civil War. Shortly afterwards, this civil war lasted 14 years. As you can see in the middle image, most of the area in Beirut has not altered in size, but rather in spatial organization. Prior to the civil war in Beirut, Lebanon, is represented here in the images above. And as you can see in the map, you see that Beirut is divided with this line right here down the center of it, dividing the West Beirut and East Beirut. In this time, the city really sanctioned itself off and almost did like what German in Berlin did, not through a wall per se, but through the dividing of the city during a period of war. During this war, which lasted from 1975 until 1989, which was a 14-year period, a great deal of Beirut's architecture had been altered during this time. So in the post-war reconstruction period of Beirut, it was predominantly funded by private sectors due to the state being very weak and under-resourced after suffering this extended period of war. Through the reconstruction process, an architect named Soldier created a master plan that would shape the destroyed city. Originally, he wanted to bulldoze the entire city and start over. However, with deep, rich history that is represented in Beirut as being one of the oldest cities in the world, many people repelled the idea and caused Soldier to rework his plans, which were finalized in 1993, so that it was more of a gridded system rather than an organic city, in which it represented what had previously been there. He also used this technique to create districts which allowed for development to occur and preservation of what happened and was created in the Ottoman and French mandates and empires. Represented in the images above is in the left side is you can see all of the war destruction that had occurred to the buildings. Those are apartment buildings on the left side. On the upper right, you can see a man standing in front of a building in Lebanon, and what it looked like in that exact location just years before, and what it looked like after the war. And in the bottom right picture is a preserved building, which is actually the Civil War Museum in Beirut, which holds many photographs and artifacts of stuff that was prior to the war, and represents what the buildings in the area looked like really prior to the war, before Soldier's plan had come and changed a couple aspects of the architecture in the area. And in this last slide, after the Civil War in Beirut, is Soldier's plan of the re-sanctioning of Beirut's central district. As you can see here in the center, this darker color here represents the area of his preservation extents and what he tried to accomplish with that. And you can see it's in the central main location, and it's on that cardinal plane system that connects the four corners of the center of the city. In that, he really wanted to maintain what was preserved in the previous eras of the city. And afterwards, the people I previously explained in the last slide, wanted to preserve onto those areas, but there also needed to be reconstruction because some areas were past the point of preservation. And that's what occurred in a lot of the blue and yellow areas of Beirut. And this concludes the urban history section of Beirut Souks.